My definition of a good option for an RPG product has changed over the years. It used to be pretty straightforward. If I could see myself using it, it was a good option. Monster that I could see myself throwing at the players, good monster. Feat or spell or piece of equipment that I could see myself given to one of my player characters, good option. Inspired a whole player character concept, great option. But we're not talking about great options here, we're talking about good options. And so over the years, the evolution has broadened to the point that there are some options that I could never see, and yet I can see them and be like, that is a really good option no one will ever use. To illustrate my point, here are 4 archetypes from Battlecry and how they represent different ways that an option can be good. Let's start with the Crossbow Infiltrator. Sometimes when you read the name of an option and it's like, that is exactly what I need, and you read and this is the important part, and then you read the mechanics and they live up to the name, that is one of the best feelings in the world. I can forgive an option that has a name that's not quite related to the mechanics, but the mechanics are what I'm looking for. Forgivable, but frustrating. But when the name is exactly what I'm looking for a concept, and then I read the mechanics and it's like, this doesn't apply at all to my build, unforgivable. So when an option is as advertised, when the name perfectly sums up the mechanics perfectly line up with the name, then you've got a good option. Guess what the Crossbow Infiltrator uses? A crossbow. Guess what they do with it? They infiltrate. You know right away whether this is for you or not. If you are doing anything with crossbows, Crossbow Infiltrator should be on your radar. If you have nothing to do with crossbows or infiltrating, you know you can move on. And that's also part of what makes this a good option. Because by being as advertised, you know, without having to skim through the rules, right away it's like, Crossbow Infiltrator, I'm making a wizard, and then you move on. Whereas if you're like, I'm making a bit of a wizard, but could it be a crossbow infiltrating wizard? Maybe. It has your attention. You know whether you want to read or not. Example number 2, the Aldori Duelist. This is an option that brings lore to life. Sometimes you need system mastery to look at an option and understand its value. Sometimes you need setting mastery, and the Aldori Duelist is one of those. If you've been reading Pathfinder for a long time, you know about the Aldori Swordlords. They were first introduced in the 2008 campaign setting. And it's just one of the many world-building elements that were peppered throughout that book that Paizo is still extrapolating from to make cool and intriguing options almost 20 years later. So the Aldori Swordlords are freedom fighters. They are from Brevoy. If there's anyone that tries to come and take over, they are there to meet them with the edge of a sword. Now, first edition introduced an archetype for the Aldori Swordlord. Sorry, it was actually a prestige class. But that undermined the idea that you're a sword lord. Like, you could qualify for it at 4th, 5th level, and that doesn't deliver on the lore. So what I really appreciate about the Aldori Duelist is that it saves the Aldori Swordlord name for a 20th level feat. So you could be a duelist, you could be on your way to being one of these sword lords, but you need to complete your journey and make a 20th level character before you qualify for being an Aldori Swordlord. So it's cool because it means that from 2nd level, when you can take this archetype, you could be like, I want to be a sword lord one day. So you get all of the like prestige of being associated with the sword lords, but you don't water down the term. Like, yes, it's semantic, but it brings value. Like, that is, flavor is semantics, and this is semantics done well. What I also like about lore brought to life options is that no one else can do them. Any other fantasy RPG can do a duelist or a swashbuckler. And in fact, Pathfinder has a duelist, non-Aldori duelist archetype, and it has the swashbuckler class. And what separates this from those and from what anyone else can publish is that this is the lore, this is the world, this is something that you may have read about in a Pathfinder novel or a comic or just reading over some flavor text. And now you want to be a part of it, and you can be, and you cannot do that anywhere but in Pathfinder. Example number 3, the Field Propagandist. I will say, the art really caught my attention. This was one of the best pieces of art in the book because it's so fun and it really brings home the point of the person that goes out there and spreads rumors, spreads misinformation to get a point across and to give yourselves an edge over, you know, your enemies, your rivals. But it's built around an exploration activity, which, you know, totally valid part of the game, just happens to be part of the game that GMs tend to handwave. Like, more than even, I feel like GMs handwave over exploration more than even downtime, because downtime sums up so much time in so few words that GMs will be like, all right, so what kind of downtime activity are you doing? But exploration groups will often be so into what they're doing that they forget that they're in exploration mode and just kind of do it a little more narratively. So the the field propagandist dedication gives you a new exploration activity, and all it does is change the attitude, on a successful roll, change the attitude people in an urban city or a population has. So it implies that this exploration cannot just be out in the woods or in a dungeon, that you specifically have to be exploring in an urban environment where there are people there who will care about what you're saying, and then you can change their attitude towards another faction, a group. It's pretty broad, at least who it applies against, but it's so specific. And then there is one of the feats is it takes 7 days of downtime, and it does basically an enhanced version of what you can do with your basic dedication. So yeah, I'm kind of making fun of the field propagandists. So how do I justify calling this a good option? Because the mechanics work. It is an exercise in design. Someone took the rules, took the concept, and did exactly how they have to be implemented in this way. This is an option I will never play. This is an option that I will never expect to see at the table. This is an option I am happy exists. And I really enjoyed reading it over, not just for the flavor, but for how that flavor was brought to life through a Pathfinder 2e mechanical lens. And finally, example number 4, the Captain. This is a game changer. Battlecry includes 11 archetypes. 10 of them are grouped together in the archetype section. And then there's one of them that you have to wait a little bit to get to because it needs 10 pages of a subsystem designed first before you can even understand how this archetype works. It's the captain, and you get followers. Almost every single captain archetype feat either gives you more followers or improves the followers you already have. So if you just want the one, you can just dip into it with the dedication and get your loyal subject. But if you want to be the one that is coordinating whole groups, you can do that with by fully committing to the captain. The reason I call this game changer, the reason I think this is a good option, is that I can see myself taking this archetype and I'm mentally building the character, and I have not picked a class or an ancestry or a background. I just know that there is enough to the captain that I can make multiple completely different characters without even considering the base options. It's also a game changer because it takes up so much space. This is almost a class. It is an archetype that rounds up. And in the future, when Paizo announces a new book, I think people will be saying things like, okay, but what's the captain of this book? Or what is the super archetype? We don't have a technical name for it. It is still technically an archetype, but it is an archetype unlike any archetype we've ever seen before. And it will change how people design and think about designing for this game, as well as how they build characters and how much weight an archetype can have on their build. What's funny about the captain is that it wasn't even on my radar when I picked up Battlecry. I got into this book expecting a new ancestry, 2 new classes, a skirmish system, and everything else in there I was just expecting to fall under this broad category of other war stuff. So for the captain to be the thing that I am thinking about the most since putting that book down, for it to be overshadowing a lot of Battlecry's big selling points, that is why this is a game changer. That is why this is a good option. One of the best options in the book. Thank you for joining me for another episode of No Direction. Now you know what to do. Like, subscribe, go to our Patreon page, give us money, go to our website, nodirectionpodcast.com, listen to our other podcasts, read our blogs, go to our Discord, join in, say hi. All that because if you want to find the path, you need no direction.